A hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer. And the best...
G'day guys, Steve from Chalk and Cue, back with another one. This one's an interesting one actually. So as you might have guessed from the theme music, it is one of a officially licensed products. Victoria Bitter. It's one of those Australian quintessential essentials. If you know it, you know it. But let's get into it. We have a maple cue which was delivered to us with no ferrule. Again, cue was wanting to be restored for sentimental reasons, and as you can see here, we are cutting back our tenon. Now, it looks a little bit brutal, more often than not it can be. However, in this case, what we've done is we're cutting it back. Now, you'll see in one of the next shots, we're actually measuring up our ferrule, and then we'll have to cut our wood tenon to fit. The important thing about cutting tenons when you are replacing ferrule is to measure both the front and rear of the ferrule, because the sizes can be different. In our case, we're using what's called a compression or a tapered ferrule, where the internal diameter of the rear of the ferrule is actually larger, considerably larger, than the internal diameter of the front of the ferrule. So we'll have to cut the wood on an angle, and that way we're actually getting it to fit on a compression size. A very important point to take note as well is when you are cutting a tenon for a ferrule, you do want to go a little bit harder into the wood. You don't want it to be too snug. If you do not leave a slight gap, and we're talking just a slight enough gap, there is no room for the glue to get in and to bed and to glue the actual ferrule onto the wood. So it is important that you overwork it ever so slightly, but again, get it as close as you can so it's just a really firm push fit. Then what you want to do is you want to use a little bit of sandpaper just to rough it back a little bit. Your best friend here is time. Once you've got it cut and you've got it all set, you do want to leave the glue to cure for as long as you possibly can. So rushing a job like this is never ideal. So now we're beginning the process of actually physically cutting the wood. Your first cut, you want to just make it as in just a rough one to take the top layer off. You don't want to try and go too hard. The idea here is to do it in layers and stages, and the first cut generally will dictate whether or not you are going to go deep enough, or you're going to be turning around and having to rework it and potentially even cut more wood off the cue in order to repair it. So right now you can see we're actually measuring between the front of the ferrule and the actual rear, just to see where it's going to go. We're sitting almost there, but we also understand now that we don't need to take too much off the back, and now it's more of a taper towards the front. So you'll see that coming up in the next little bit. Now, if you can see on the tool itself, there is an angle to the cutting bit. Again, that's to assist us in what we need to do here. This is going back to a second chamfer bit. This one here is designed so I can get my angle onto that particular piece of wood without having to try and work it on the lathe itself. So that one there worked out really well. Just smooth it off with a little bit of sandpaper. We will have a little bit of overhang out of the end of the ferrule, and that's not a bad thing at all. Like, again, it allows you just a little bit of extra room to make sure that you can get it to really get a good mating surface. So when you are gluing a tip at the end of the job, you are going to get the best playing surface and the best transmission of power all the way through from the tail of the cue all the way through to the tip. Now we've changed back to our primary cutting bit. Now this one is just to neaten up the mating surface, but at the very, very end of the tenon, again, we want it nice and flush with the actual shaft of the cue, and so this part here allows us to cut just that little bit sharper and ensure that it's going to get the best surface possible. So you really don't want any sort of a dip or lip when you're feeling between the wood of the cue all the way up to the ferrule, and this allows us to maintain as much media on the ferrule itself without having to compromise that feel. So we're getting to the point now where it's getting close to gluing stage. The idea with gluing stage is very, very simple. The glue will go directly onto the wood, and again, you'll see me using the Loctite Power Gel. It's the glue that I exclusively use. I tend not to trust any other brands, and I have a very, very low failure rate as a result. Now, as you can see there, the tip slides on fairly effortlessly, and from this point, the idea is to put as much pressure for as long a period of time as you can, and just let it sit there. So we'll see you when we come back. And through the magic that is editing, we are back. The glue is sat down now for about 5 hours and had plenty of time to cure. With that there, just checking the ferrule, and yeah, it's definitely on there properly and on straight, which is important as well. The last thing you want would be a ferrule which you've just remounted and your tenon is not cut straight. It's one of the worst things that can happen. Now we move forward into the machining aspect. This is a pretty simple process, but the idea here is to ensure that the tip surface, which you are going to glue obviously your tips onto, is going to be flush with the new ferrule and also with the wood there, and there's no gaps. We don't want to have anything which is going to be protruding or uneven, or anything that may impact the quality of which the tip can glue to the shaft. What we will do here as well is we will do a bit of a cleanup around the whole ferrule as well, and make sure that, for anything that needs a little bit of work, so sometimes you will find that there is going to be tiny little bits which will be protruding, or you'll have to machine it down ever so slightly. It's a very simple process. Again, it's one of those ones where you're just cleaning it up, and you can see there by the changing colour on the brass that you are taking a little bit of media off, but not too much. Our next step from here is going to be polishing. So we are going to mate the wood to the tenon, and that's what we're doing there. So it's a 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. Definitely not wet by any stretch of the imagination. Please keep water away from raw exposed wood. But what we are doing here is we're mating that surface, so between the brass ferrule and the wooden shaft, so there is no lip on either side, and that's come up nice and easy. As you can see, it was a very simple process. Now it's time for the tip replacement. Again, the process is very simple. You need to sand the bottom of the tip to make sure it's nice and flat, which ensures that you do have an adequate surface for mating. Put on the glue and then provide pressure onto the tip surface to allow it to bond to the wood tenon and the ferrule. So we are going to be doing a series coming up as well, and a couple of instructionals on how to replace tips without expensive equipment. Again, something that everyone should know for when you're on the road. Ideally, doing it on Cue lathe like this gives us a great result every time. However, you're not always able to do that. So we're going through now the shaping, and we're just cutting off the excess on the edge of the tip there, and we'll run it through. So this is our first shaping procedure, our trim. Then we remove the bulk of the tip media with a blade. This is the most effective way to do it. It ensures a great result. It does take a little bit of practice. Don't recommend everyone jump straight into it. But we also use a guide here to, again, remove it. And then from there, we're going to move on to sandpaper. So after playing with the cue, I wasn't entirely happy with the tip that we placed on it. I didn't feel that it was the right tip for this particular cue and the way it played. So we have removed the cue, we're re-tipping it now, and as you can see through the same process, we get our blade, we take off as much of the media as we can to begin with. Once that's done, we'll shape it just the right way and get it done so it can actually get a good solid shape onto it. Now again, the blade and the guide is one of the easiest ways to do this, but again, you can do it at home. Sandpaper, or even if you cut it by hand, you can do that too. There are special even sharpeners that I have seen. We will do a bit of a review on some of those, or I think I'll have to get a couple so we can have a bit of a look, and maybe we'll compare the real ones to maybe the Temu ones. We'll see how that goes, so stay tuned for a bit of fun with that in a later episode. Now we're coming up to the end of the shaping process. If you liked the video, thank you so much guys for watching right through. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps my channel to grow and helps me to provide more content for you guys. So thanks once again, and look, we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.
A hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer. And the best cold beer has the greatest damn theme music ever written. Have a listen to that.